Hey, everybody, welcome back. I have a beautiful soul here today, and Deborah Hammett. She grew up in New York and received her bachelor's degree there at Connecticut State University, uh, at Western Connecticut State University. And she moved, as we all do after we graduate, to the island of Martha Vineyard in 1986, which I imagine is a very different place as I read. And she began her career as a teacher. She was an educator for 33 years, but now she lives wherever her beautiful sailboat takes her. And she's the author of Salty at 60, Becoming Better Than Retired. We share so much in common. I'm so grateful she's here telling you all about what makes the difference when you leap into something new. Welcome to the show, Deborah.
Thanks, Azul. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
That's wonderful. Well, I have too have recorded podcasts from a ship or boat at sea, in the middle of the Mediterranean, in harbors, different places, because that was something I considered doing with my husband. Is maybe we'll just live aboard. We took some sailing lessons and lived aboard to see, could we do this? Could we cook? Could we stay? Could we make this happen? So I have so many questions about that, and it's revealed in your book. We'll talk specifically about that. But one of the questions I really had was the moment at which you spent those 30 plus years in the classroom or at a school. When was the exact moment that you knew you were ready to trade chalkboards for chart plotters?
That was breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, when would you knew that you were trading your classroom chalkboards for chart plotters and other tools?
That didn't happen right away. So I decided to throw in the towel from public education. I felt like I had really hit the wall. I had done everything that I set out to do. And what I was trying to do as an administrator wasn't something that I thought would be possible. I thought I had ambitions that were systemically impossible to achieve. And once I discovered that, I thought, why am I banging my head against this wall? And what I really wanted to do was travel. And I wanted to regain my life. I wanted to be in control of my life rather than have my life be controlled by a schedule, by a system. Um, and I wanted to have some freedom. So I retired and I started traveling, and I was traveling before COVID. I did a little teaching online, which was great. I was teaching English online, which I loved, and I had students all over the world, which was really fun. Elite students who wanted well trained American education, um, and they could pay. So that was great. I was doing that in Thailand and Malaysia during COVID. I loved traveling during COVID because I could name my price at any hotel. The beaches were empty, the planes were empty, the airports were empty. I could ride around on my little scooter in Malaysia, and there was no traffic on the roads. It was incredible, and I was outside all the time. I really didn't think I would get COVID, and I thought my chances would be better of getting it in my grocery store on Martha's Vineyard. So I loved being kind of a nomad, a digital nomad, and um, then I went to the Dominican Republic, and I loved it there. And the reason I went there is that they had an overstay system with their visa where you didn't have to leave after 30 days. So Thailand, Malaysia, those countries had a 30-day limit to the tourist visa. So I went to the Dominican Republic and I loved it there. I met a guy from Vermont, and he kind of swept me off my feet. And we went to Vermont and started taking sailing lessons. And it was just really ironic that all those years on Martha's Vineyard, I never really thought much about sailing. My kids took sailing lessons. I watched sailboats every day. I never sailed. I never did any boating really, other than taking the ferry boat. And I was really, really busy just raising kids and teaching school. So I learned to sail on Lake Champlain, and I started watching YouTube videos, and that turned me on to this whole concept of, oh, you can live aboard a boat and sail to wherever you want to be. And you can access places that you wouldn't be able to access on land.
Right.
And your boat is your home and it's with you all the time. And I thought that was the coolest thing I had ever heard of. And I got addicted to these YouTube videos. And before you know it, we were looking at boats, and we bought a boat. This boat, actually, the boat that I'm on right now, we bought in Lake Champlain, and that's the boat that I ultimately ended up single-handing down from Lake Champlain through the Champlain Canal, through the Hudson River, and all the way down to Georgetown in the southern Bahamas, and then back up. And the whole time I was doing that, I was teaching online, but I would have to drop the anchor and teach a lesson. And that was, for safety reasons, that wasn't such a good idea. There were a lot of times when I was really rushed, um, and it wasn't good. And then I would have to cancel classes, and that wasn't good. I didn't like doing that. I was always like the kind of person that was like ultra responsible. So I didn't like feeling like I was letting people down or disappointing people. They understood, but still, it was not good. So anyway, I decided to let it all go. And I thought, you know what? I can probably afford to not work. And so there I was, not working and just sailing. And I started to feel really empty, like I had no
Hmm.
purpose. And I had always had a purpose. I had always wanted to be making a difference for somebody somehow, doing volunteer work, being a teacher, mom, all that. And here I was, just selfishly flitting around in my sailboat without an ethical anchor of any kind. And so I decided, I need to find something I can do in my own time, not on a schedule.
Right.
Maybe I can write a book. I've been teaching English all these years. Maybe I can write a book. And maybe I can write about sailing and what I've learned, in my clunky Lucille Ball of the Seas kind of way.
I love
And
that.
maybe I can entertain people and inspire people to take on something new and scary and totally out of their wheelhouse, even though they are a mature adult,
Yeah.
even though they're retiring, even though they're, uh, I think a lot of people look at their retirement as the end of their life. And I think um, if we look at it with the same ambition that we had when we were 30, we would be looking at the years of 60 to 90 with the same potential for the years between 30 and 60. And there's no reason, really, if you're healthy and you make an effort to make the right choices to take care of yourself, there's no reason you can't do and grow and learn to be whatever you want
Yeah.
after you retire from your, day job.
Yeah. I always often say that my goal in leaving education wasn't to abandon people or that I didn't love children or all the things I probably thought of before I left, which was I had inspired my children and it was time to let them inspire me to do the things I said you could do anything. You could do be anything you want. And then part of me was feeling like a little bit of a fraud because I was feeling like I wasn't living my potential and I wasn't even sure what it was because
Mhm.
I had started teaching at 24. I was fairly
Mhm.
young, right? And so
Yeah.
I was looking for myself. A lot of people in retirement start to slow down and it seemed like you start hitting the gas. What did you say to somebody who feels like it's too late to start that new thing?
Yeah, what's the point of retiring if you're not going to do anything with that time? If you spend all your life doing the right thing, going to work, taking care of the kids, taking care of the house, paying your taxes, the whole thing, doing everything the way you're supposed to do it. And then you get to this point in your life where you are going to do what? Nothing? Rest? I mean, the whole time I was working, I thought that when I retired, I would want to rest and travel a little bit. And that's pretty much it. I really didn't have the energy to consider anything else. And if you had ever told me that I would be single handing a sailboat, for thousands of miles and living on it for 2 years, I've been living on this sailboat for 2 years. And that I mean, just tonight when I came in, I just anchored really proficiently, and these guys in this boat next to me said, "Wow, you look like you've got a lot of experience." And I said, "Yeah, 2 years."
That's amazing. You know what's incredible is that you created a life that you didn't even foresee for yourself then, because you talk about sailing and not having really, a disposition for it, even though you lived in Martha's Vineyard, which for many were like, gosh, if I could just live someplace like Martha's Vineyard, my life would then be blank, whatever it is. And here you are growing up. Yes, Martha's Vineyard was a different place in the 80s, probably, than it is now. However, you talk a lot about in your book about, you know, your daughters were sailing long before you were, and sort of the reverse roles that got created when learning what they already knew, maybe being a rookie again. That's something that in the past you it seemed like you had prided yourself on. I'm really good at this thing called teaching motherhood, my life, and now you're a rookie at something that potentially is perilous. Like you can't just jump into the sea without knowing what you're doing, and you have to really have a lot of the learner mindset. How was that for you, becoming the learner again?
Humbling. Very humbling. I really, oh gosh, I can't tell you how many times I've cried and I've wanted to quit, and I've had to ask for help. And then,
Mm,
when somebody's trying to help me, I don't understand what they're explaining. I've had to be I've had to be my worst student. And it's been tough, but it's also been really rewarding. So as I go along, I'm feeling like there are more and more things that I feel a level of confidence in doing. So my skills are growing. I can do things with my engine now. I can, change my oil like it's nothing. I can, um, I can clean my boat. I know how to tie up my dinghy, with the lines in a way that isn't going to cause my dinghy to be swinging everywhere when I'm on the high seas. Um, I know how to work the VHF radio. I know how to talk to a bridge tender. All that stuff was new, and
yeah,
I've learned it the hard way by making a lot of mistakes. And I always tell my kids, there are no mistakes, only gifts, because every mistake is an opportunity for learning. But that's a whole different ball game when you're the student and you're making nothing but mistakes and you feel like it's just hopeless.
yeah,
But it's been really, really amazing. I've learned a lot about myself and my stereotypes.
mm,
Meeting people from all different cultures within America, all different mindsets within America, and what I anticipate somebody thinking, saying, or doing based on the the geographical culture where they are, and what actually happens is is kind of a wake up call for me on some of my own biases. So, like, I'll anticipate that somebody's going to have an ultra conservative view of something, and then they'll totally shock me. Or I'll anticipate that somebody is going to, be uh, be a certain way, and then they will totally let me down. You know,
yeah.
I'll
You,
I'll, I'll trust somebody, and then they'll totally let me down. So it's been a real interesting process. There's some gender stuff that I've noticed along the way, being a woman captain. Um,
yeah,
it's been interesting.
it is interesting. Fortunate. sailed the first time really as a young person, but I took student sailing early on when I was in my 20s in the inner city in Los Angeles who had never even been to the beach. Sailing on a tall ship from San Pedro to Catalina was their first time in the water, and watching these young people who were, 13 years old man a ship and follow the orders of a captain. It's a huge vessel. These are some of them were twin brigantines were sailing side by side. It's really, it's a working vessel. It's not a game. It's
Mhm,
very
mhm.
serious,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of fun to be had. And I learned to love the sea in those times, even though I grew up on the ocean. Like you, I grew up near water, but I didn't sail. It wasn't something I did. What's the biggest lesson that sailing alone has taught you?
Uh, to slow down.
Mm.
So I need to stay where my feet are. I need to be present so that I can make good, clear, conscious decisions about things. I make mistakes when I am 3 steps ahead of where I am. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. That's when things unravel. And that's when I make mistakes with what I'm doing right now because I'm thinking about what I should be doing 3 steps from now.
What a
Uh,
beautiful lesson for life as well.
oh, yeah.
You talked about that that the tears are not a strategy, that they were some sort of the hardest lessons that you learned at sea and tested that
Mhm.
mantra.
Yeah.
What was one of the scariest and most perilous moments you experienced sailing?
Oh, wow. Okay. So, there are a few, but one that comes to mind is I was in the middle of a 60-mile crossing from Nassau in the Bahamas to the Berry Islands. And about 30 miles out, where there was nobody who could be hailed on the VHF radio, where there was no cell service. My Starlink, I had forgotten actually to turn on the data usage that would have given me connectivity 30 miles out. So I didn't have any internet connectivity, and my engine overheated, and there was very little wind that day, and to I was trying to make it to Grand Bahama before this big wind kicked up, and so the engine overheated, and I thought it's got to be one of two things. I had taken a diesel engine online course on YouTube, and I knew it had to be the raw water filter or the impeller. That is the little rubber wheel that has these little arms on it that spins the raw water pump, and it pumps the raw water through the engine so that the raw water can cool the engine, and the engine will run. So I had the sails up, and I had to go below, and I had to open the engine compartment, and I had to unscrew the little I had to shut off the seacock so that raw water wouldn't start filling up the boat so that I could work on this thing. And I unscrewed all the screws, and I did just what they showed in the video. I tried pulling it out, and I got the thing out, and one of the little rubber arms came off with it, which was great because it was reassurance that was in fact what the problem was. I had spares on board because I had been told you should have spares on board, and so I replaced the thing. I put dish soap on it, like I saw in the YouTube video. Replaced the thing, and I went back up, and I started the engine, and lo and behold, water was spitting out the way it's supposed to. And I thought, oh my God, I did it. I can't even believe I did it.
That's
So,
amazing.
but it was terrifying. And the whole time I'm down there, upside down, screwing around with the screws, I was getting seasick because the
Mm.
water was going, the boat was moving, and I'm kind of upside down in the engine compartment. But, and I was, really, really, really nervous, but I did it.
You did it. That's amazing. You know what? This story about, I was going to ask you what you learned from sailing, and I think it's very obvious. What I really want to talk about before we talk about the writing process on a boat, and what it was, your publishing process was like, was I think you talked about how the boat is not an asset. Let's not think of it as an asset you're purchasing. It's really
Mm,
something else. It's nothing about it is free, you say, I think.
no.
So what made this the right emotional and financial decision to risk it?
Yeah. Well, I had done the responsible thing my whole entire life. I went to college. I paid off my student loans. I went to grad school. I was a teacher. I was a principal. I put my kids through college, private schools in Boston, blah, blah, blah. I did everything I was supposed to do. Bought a house, built a house, the whole thing, and stayed married for 33 years. Everything I was supposed to do, I did. And I was just cooked. I was really tired of doing what I was supposed to do, and I wanted to do what I felt like doing, whatever I wanted to do. So, yeah.
That's it. That's what it was. It's I love. You know what? I think there's
Was.
something that teachers who had a purpose. You talked about what's my purpose, so that's a good transition to this book. We teach a course, a program here called Fiction with Purpose, because it's easy to see how a nonfiction book could be purposeful. But I want to show people what fiction can be purposeful for, the lessons you've learned, the things that you wanted to be that you aren't, the mistakes, the failed relationships, the loves that got away. All those things can be found in fiction. So I'm teaching this. But
Mhm.
when you talk about purpose, you were writing this book to find a deeper purpose. What have you found that it's done for you since writing it?
So it's really reinforced the fact that I love teaching. I was raised by teachers. I love it. I feel like I'm really good at it. And I love teaching because I'm able to help people, and I really want to be able to help people. And writing is a form of teaching. And I want to inspire people to learn to sail if that's what they want to do, but also to take a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this risk of writing a book. Tell us what your writing process was like. How long did it take you? Did you write every day, or was it only
Uh,
when you could be in harbor? Or tell us a little bit about the book unfolding.
it, it was the easiest thing I ever did in my whole life.
That's awesome.
I just like the book wrote itself. I I wrote on rainy days when I was bored and I had nothing else to do. Then I wrote.
Yeah.
And then when I was sailing, I would go a week or two without writing. And then there would be these rainy days and I would start writing and I would not be able to stop. And
Hmm.
I would write for like 3 days straight. And then I would go away and do other things and then I would come back to it. It was really really easy.
Great. What was your publishing path like? Did you decide, oh, I'm going to self publish? Did you look for a publisher?
Oh
What was your
boy.
first steps out the door?
Yeah, that was harder. The publishing, the marketing, oh boy, that stuff is way out of my wheelhouse. And so I had to find somebody who could edit the book for me. And so I found somebody online on Readsy who would do the editing for me. And then I found somebody who would convert the files so that they could be uploaded to Kindle and Amazon for the paperback and hard copy. Um, and, it was really, that was kind of clunky for me, all those
Yeah.
little technical pieces. The cover design, I thought I had a good cover design, but then I showed it to the guy who was helping me with the conversion of the files, and he gave me a few other ideas, and I thought, oh yeah, his ideas are way better than mine. So I ended up choosing one of his ideas, and now the whole marketing thing. Oh gosh, I didn't know. Uh, I didn't realize how much was involved. So now I'm trying to do some social media stuff, and I'm trying to learn Instagram and post things. I'm pretty creative, and I've been having some fun with it. But I am really a beginner. So,
Yeah.
and
Well,
the other thing too is like I'm not one of these YouTubers in their 30s, so I'm not like running around spearfishing in my bikini and like having that kind of a following. Um, so it's tricky.
yeah.
It's
I,
tricky.
it,
My
it is
videos
the
have to be
hardest
more
part.
instructional.
Yeah. So what kind of content do you put out for this if you're obviously not spearfishing in a bikini?
Um, so today I published one about how to tie a cleat hitch. Yeah.
Useful. That you're teaching, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I go to a dock, I see a lot of dock hands don't know how to do it correctly. And so I show them how to do it correctly. A great teacher taught me how to do it with two rivers and a bridge, and the two lines going under and one line crossing over. And so I did a little YouTube video about that today and posted that. I did one about how to mark my anchor chain so that I know how much chain I'm letting out. And I
Mm,
have a color coded key on my bow pulpit rail to remind me of, yellow is 60 feet and orange is 70 feet and, so on.
yeah. That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. And then sometimes just stuff like, good morning, St. Augustine. I just left St. Augustine, Florida, and there was a beautiful
Yeah.
sunrise.
Right. That's amazing. So, will you have more books in you? If this is an effortless thing showing up, are you thinking I'm going to write more? Are you wanting more adventure outside of the page more than on it this day?
I definitely think I'll write another book.
Yeah.
I definitely think I will. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I'm kind of leaning toward capitalizing on other people's experiences. So maybe something where I am interviewing liveaboard sailors, or I'm making a collection of boat hacks that I can gather from other liveaboard sailors.
Yeah.
But to try to make it not just about me, but content that I can pull um, from you know a number of
Other
different people.
places. Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned actually from a couple women captains, which is, like you said, more unusual than common.
Mhm.
And one of the captains we sailed with off the coast of Sicily, her name is Suzanne, and she runs a group called Ocean Nomads. Really interesting group. If you have heard of it, she wrote a book as well about her experience of not knowing much about sailing and then becoming a captain herself. Uh, but I think, not that to plant seeds that you don't need, but I think if you have a fiction bent in you, could be a plethora of lesson teaching ideas in your
Mhm.
journeys about all of your life, really. I found your early life just as interesting as the one at sea, because I think underneath what you were saying made you unique already. Maybe you played the role. It's really easy to fall into the role of teacher or parent or spouse.
Mhm.
It has rules, right? You follow these
Mhm.
rules. And
Mhm.
then when you step out of the rules of those systems, the roles of parenthood, spouse, principal, landlubber, whatever, you
Mhm.
start to see yourself differently. How have you started to see yourself differently that you didn't notice before?
Uh, well, I see myself now as a learner. I definitely see myself as more dynamic, and more faithful, really, because a lot of what I do is scary. Like, I'm afraid for my life, probably more days than not,
Mm,
and and I have to maintain some sort of spiritual connection so that I can let go of my own mortal need to control everything. I have to be
mm,
able to distance myself from the outcome of everything and just stay in the moment and trust that whatever is going to happen is exactly what's meant to happen.
mm,
So I've really had to have my faith tested. Not my religion tested, because I'm not really a churchy religious person, but my spirituality has been tested big time.
Mm,
And, you know,
that's amazing.
yeah.
Did you find that your spirituality became what it is because of this 2-year journey you've been on?
I think that this journey and this business of sailing and living aboard a boat has forced me to let go of fears of pirates in sketchy situations, sketchy anchorages, in just even in anchoring in Harlem under the George Washington Bridge,
Mm,
on a mooring ball that I had no idea when the last time these mooring balls had ever been checked were. And the only boats that were anchored there looked like they hadn't moved this century.
wow.
And, and but I had no choice, and it's raining and it's at night, and there's all the homeless people under the bridge, and I'm having to trust that everything's going to be okay. And it was, but
Yeah.
because one time somebody saved my life, and it was somebody who I really was afraid of this person. I was
Mm,
afraid of this person because of my own biases about the way he looked,
mm,
and the kind of boat that he was living on, and the place where we were. And when I fell in the water and the marina was closed, and this guy came out of his boat and saved my life because I was being swept under the dock by a current with no ladder anywhere and no way to get back up onto my boat, he dragged me to the transom so that I could climb out of the water.
yeah.
But that was a wake up call about, wow, sometimes I think if I'm in a sketchy place, bad things are going to happen. You know, uh, Totally the opposite could be true.
Yeah. I love that you're sharing this with people because for two reasons. Number one, I find that whatever faith my spiritual self gives me, untested is sort of not faith at all. It's an idea of faith. But when you have to test the truth of who you think you are, that's when your faith becomes real. And I think so many of us love or live in the status quo where we don't have to test anything that isn't certain. And,
Yeah.
being a school is certain. Kids come every fall, whether you want them to or not. And they show up with their own needs, whether, you're able to meet them or not. And so,
Hmm.
but it was a certainty of that. There was so much certainty. But when you take away the certainty and you have freedom, with freedom comes a new sense of letting go. Tell us how freedom gives you the sense of that notion, freedom, but also a sense of having to be okay with the unknown.
Oh, it's great that you really get it, from the rigidity of a school to the freedom and also the flexible lifestyle where everything depends on the weather, and I have no idea what the weather's going to be from, one day to the next. I can look at it at night, and then I wake up in the morning, I look at it again, and things have changed.
Yeah.
So, is it a go day or is it a stay day? When do I think I'm going to be at a certain location? I can tell you a month, but I can't tell you a day. I think I'm going to be in Massachusetts in July. I mean, it's like that loose.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to planning things, it's kind of a maybe.
Yeah.
Everything's a maybe.
You know
And
what? Do you think that's really the truth of life that we just didn't notice before?
yeah, I do. I really do, because you really don't have as much control. I didn't have as much control as I thought I had. And most of my problems, looking back on my regular life, my life as a mom, as a teacher, as a principal, the places where I had the biggest problems are the places where I thought that I should have more control than what I actually had.
Hmm. Tell me more about that.
So, in schools, there's a lot of things that happen that are completely out of my control. And it's scary for a teacher to lose control, like lose control of the classroom, right? Is like the
Yeah.
scariest thing. But good teachers know that if they release control of learning to the students and the students are allowed to take risks and they're allowed to explore things and make mistakes, that everybody's going to grow more. But it's scary. It's scary for the student. It's scary for the teachers because they're going to lose control of the classroom. When I was supervising teachers, that was the biggest thing. They didn't want the kids to misbehave. They didn't want to have. They were afraid if they did small group instruction, there would be chaos. Um, but chaos is really important. You know.
Hmm.
Um,
I love that. Tell me why. This is a great line. Chaos is very important. Tell me more about this.
because without disruption, there isn't going to be enough growth.
Hmm.
So our ideas have to be challenged. We have to be made uncomfortable. We have to look at things, be forced to look at things in a way that we've never had to look at them before. And um, I think that sailing has really taught me a lot about that. And it's stuff that I was trying to understand in my leadership classes. Like I have a master's degree in school leadership. And I will tell you that, and you probably know that I didn't learn to be a school leader in my master's program.
Not at
it's
all.
it's you have to really be in it, and you have to really relinquish control
Hmm.
in order to achieve a goal. And that's tough to wrap my mind around, but that's true for sailing too.
I think relinquish control is how you get freedom. I just think so many people don't want to let go.
Yeah, it's tough
Yeah.
because society teaches us that if you're not in control, you're irresponsible. You haven't gotten ahead of this bad thing that might happen or that bad thing that might happen.
Hmm.
You're a slacker, you're lazy, you haven't been diligent. So
Yeah.
our society rewards diligence and compliance and hard work. But do we really reward um, being present and being
Hmm.
flexible
Yeah. I
and
love
being
that.
willing to respond to what's happening in the moment?
Right. I have a thing I try to keep in my mind about being permanently flexible because flexibility isn't something for one moment. It's a continuous state of flexibility. And I love your analogy about being present on a boat is where you make the fewest mistakes when you're present. I think that's true in life. So many of us are rushing to what's next. If you're
Mm.
like me and you're in your mid 50s, you're thinking, well, if I just get to retirement, I can hold on until then. And I think the reason I left way before my retiring age is I didn't want to build a life I had to retire from. And it sounds like that's the life that you're living now. I know that people are going to want to follow you, learn more about your journeys. Of course, we want them to read Young Salt at 60, but where else could they find you, Deborah? Your YouTube channel or your social media you're growing? Because we could help you grow it by sharing where you're at.
So, yeah, Young Salt at 60 on Instagram and Facebook. And I have a website, Young Salt 60, Young Salt 60, the number 60.com is my website. Um, so I'm, trying to build my digital presence, be an
Yeah,
influencer.
uh,
And, you know,
that's amazing.
and and that's kind of fun, it's another thing that I'm learning, that
Hmm.
I'm brand new at. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to dip a toe in it, and I'm trying to have fun with it, and I'm trying to not beat myself up too much about making mistakes as I go along in my
Yeah.
clunky growing um, path.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's awesome. Well, we're going to make sure we link all that in our show notes. If you haven't already been convinced you need to ring Young Salt at 60, it's an incredible book about becoming better than retired, which is an incredible notion. Um, Deborah, you've been an inspiration. Thank you so much for showing us the way to being who you are. And I think that's what I learned so much from your book. Thank you again. It's been an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Azul. It's been great. It's been great talking to you, and it's great that you understand the whole school thing and the transition and this and you know a lot about sailing too. Very impressive.
Yeah. Thank you so much.